When you are starting a project, you first need to decide if it should be a multi-page app or a single-page app. This video defines the differences, the pros and cons of each, and then shows real code examples. Then we will build a couple of pages using the multi-page application design and the single-page application design via the Wizard's Toolkit. Wizard's Toolkit is a low-code development environment based on PHP, SQL, and JavaScript. In this video, we will be using the materialized CSS framework, but it will work with any HTML framework. With a single-page application, when the user first comes to the website, the page downloads the HTML, external CSS files, external JavaScript files, and possibly some images. Thereafter, when the user navigates through the website or app, what is actually happening is JavaScript functions are called, which retrieve small sections of HTML and display them in a section in the previously downloaded HTML. This is done usually by calling PHP or other backend languages, which receive past parameters, then retrieve information from a database, use code to determine and format HTML, and return it to the calling app or website. Historical note, although not officially termed until 2005, Microsoft first created AJAX in 1999. AJAX originally was an acronym for Asynchronous JavaScript and XML. It was a method of using JavaScript to make a call to a backend server to retrieve a small amount of data to update a web page. AJAX is no longer used solely for XML. In fact, now it is usually used to retrieve JSON or HTML, but the term AJAX sustains because who wants to say Ajaj or Aja? A prime advantage of single-page applications is speed, and transitions from page to page can use fluid animations. All the CSS and JS files never need to be re-downloaded. The browser doesn't even have to check to see if they are in cache. You can even include hidden in the initially downloaded HTML static pages, quote unquote, so they never need to be downloaded. For example, almost all websites will need a login page, a forgot password page, a send bug report page, and a thanks page. These can all be included in the original HTML and then simply unhidden when the user navigates to them. That way there is no need to even hit the server for those items. A good example of a single page application is Gmail. Once the page loads, all clicking on links you do is only refreshing the bare necessities and makes for a great user experience. Multi-page applications, on the other hand, is how the web was originally born. Every link goes to a new page which downloads all the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and images necessary for the page. Most people have pretty fast internet, so in actuality the speed differences may not seem significant, especially if you have set your caching properly in your .htaccess file. For example, this is some settings I use for some of my websites, since the CSS, images, and JS files should not be modified hardly ever. Note that .htaccess settings also affect subfolders by default. Still, when a user goes from page to page, there will be a page load, so the transition is not as nice as on a single page app. While I go over the pros and cons, in the background I'm going to be showing you how the websites look when the speed is slower. I'm using Firefox and I'm throttling down to 3G good speed limits. First, I'll show SPA speed limits. Single page applications, here's the pros. Faster page navigation. Smaller file size between pages, which could be important for slow connections, for example on a mobile phone in a mall or somewhere with bad reception. Nice transition animations are possible. It feels more like an app than a website and harder for hackers to hack. Single page application, the cons. Harder to debug. Some libraries use DOM caching, which can be maddening if you have data that changes. It's horrible for SEO. Bookmarks and sharing links do not retain pages you are on. They will always bring the person to the home page. Now note, some single page application networks or frameworks have a workaround, but can be a nightmare for developers to manage. Now for the multi-page application pros. They're good for SEO. They're good for bookmarking and sharing because every page has a unique URL. And it's easier to debug because any problem is specifically from the page you are on, not from a JavaScript variable value that was set on a previous page. Which should you use? If you need web pages for SEO, you should go with MPA. If you want people to share specific pages deep within your website, again, you should go with MPA. If you have less than 6 pages on your entire website, you should probably just go with MPA, multi-page application design. In almost all other scenarios, it's generally better to go with SPA or single page application. Alright, now for the Wizard's Toolkit demo. This is the bare minimum that you need to do a browse box or a list of data. And here's how it looks. Alright, notice even as a MPA or multi-page design, down here the navigation is still using Ajax. Let's look at the generated HTML. Alright, here we have the CSS at the top, then the icons and fave icon, then we have the JavaScript, and then we have a very simple HTML page with the table. And down here we have our modals for the please wait circle, and we're actually not using the modal alert. And then we have the JavaScript, which is all pulled from the MPA file by default. Okay, here you see it all again, and it's just putting the browse box of data or the data table right here. All right, again, let's look at this. And up here we're saying do not require a login. And then this is all you need to call the Wizard's Toolkit library. Here's our SQL statement. And then this little baby, this little function, calls the function in the browse PDO file. And all it's really doing is a wrapper that will handle exports in CSV or export XML, build the table, which includes the Ajax, and then it calls this, which stuffs it into the MPA file if you don't define a different file. So let's look at this again. And if we look at the generated HTML, down in the footer, it's generating these JavaScripts, which call the WTK browse box JavaScript function, passing in the basics to handle the navigation that allows it to do this and go through the table, which is extremely fast because it's not actually returning a whole HTML page. It's just returning the table with the data in it. All right, but if we want to make this look a little bit better than this bare basics, we can. I copied the MPA file and I put it into the demo folder and I renamed it as demo MPA. Now the only real difference is this right here. I threw in a card, colored it green, darkened it, made some green text, and then I had the same WTK content, which is what it's always going to use to fill and then the end of the divs. The rest is exactly the same. Oh, and I threw in a title. All right, so We save that. Now let's do a refresh. And now, boom. Here we have a much prettier page. It still uses the same Ajax. It's still considered a multi-page design. And now it has these as well, which is because I put in glow show export equals true, it defaults to false, and show export XML equals true, and then I define the HTML template being this page. Alright, also in this page, to get those export buttons to show, you put in header buttons like this, including the comment out before and after. So now if I click on this, it takes you to a CSV page, and then that will allow you to export. Here's the actual generated export, and if we open that in Atom, here we see the data as a CSV. Of course, if we open it up in a spreadsheet, it would open up in a spreadsheet, because all spreadsheets work fine with CSV files. And if we do this, notice it generated the XML. We'll click that. Look at the generated file. This is the XML that was generated. And it was all generated based on this tiny bit of code. Alright, but generally, I mean, you could build your whole website by making your own little demo HTML page or making your own HTML template and then calling things like this that will fill it. But usually you want to use the slightly more advanced way, and I made another version like this. Now I'm going to switch this back to MPA for multi-page design or multi-page app. And on this one, I've added a few more features that are available. These are also available using the Fill Browse feature, but this gives you a little more flexibility. Okay. Remember, the Fill Browse feature calls this is the primary magical function that does a huge amount of work. WTK Build Data Browse. This is 731 lines of thoroughly tested PHP code that handles column sorting, column alignment, totaling, and so much more. So back to here. We have the same exact select statement. Here we're choosing to align some of the columns. We're choosing to do a header sort on these two columns. We're defining an edit page, which you'll notice is right here. Then we're pulling that and sticking it in a list variable. And then here we are making the HTML exactly how we want. We can put in our own header, whatever you like. And then down here I have it doing something slightly different for single page app versus multi-page app. But you can see the only real difference is whether you're just sending an echo of it or you're using the WTK merge page, which puts it into the MPA HTML template. So let's look to see how this looks. We got lookup list up here, and you see now these are clickable. If I click them, it sorts. If I click it a second time, it sorts in descending order. And the edit button will go and allow me to edit. Oops, I have the edit as a single page application. I'll have to fix that. But since we're here, let's look to see what the generated HTML is. This is the HTML generated for a single page application. In fact, let's do that with the single page application on the list as well, just so you can see exactly what's generated. Here's our single page application, and you see that it's calling for the edit buttons Ajax Go, and it's passing in the lookup edit, which is your PHP page that does the edit, and then it passes in the ID. And then down here, it's using the same WTK browse box for the Ajax calls to do the data navigation from one page to the next. All right. So let's go back to MPA. And we'll refresh. There it is. Now let's look at this. And notice instead of Ajax Go, it's now using WTK go to URL. Why? Because the browse PDO knows, it's smart enough to know if you're in an MPA mode or a SPA mode based on this variable right here. Usually you assign this in your WTK server info right there. Usually you assign it right here, but if you wanted to, you could assign it on a page by page basis like I did here for this testing. All right, so let's go and we'll change this to be MPA also. All right, now we come in here, we say, and there we go. Now it's actually calling the whole page. If we look at this now, we see that it's the whole thing instead of just this. This is the major difference between SPA or single page application and MPA. The SPA only retrieves this, which is the bare necessity to make the page, and the MPA returns all of this. And as I mentioned earlier, if you don't have your htaccess set up properly, it might actually be downloading this. Hopefully it's the browser is putting it in cache properly, but by doing the SPA, you don't have to worry about it. It's already in cache. I'm going to cancel, and I'm there. All right. Now let's go to SPA. I'm going to do SPA, and again, the only difference is really this versus this. The SPA method just sends back the HTML. The MPA method packages it in an HTML template. All right, now let's switch this to SPA. Now, part of the problem about an SPA is you can't go directly to it unless you're doing a login. You need to have an initial page. So for this demonstration, what I did was I made a simple index page that calls the regular SPA template, and then I stuff into it a shortcut link to the lookup list. And I'm also going to give you a charts demo at the very end. So this is going to put this into the dashboard section after logging in so we can see the SPA demo as it's supposed to be. All right, so here's our index spa. I log in. Up here is the spa list demo. It's blazing fast. The sort columns, these are all Ajax based, so they do the minimum regardless of your MPA or SPA version. Same with the page navigation down here. And now let me show you what's actually going on. So we went to lookup list, and there's pulling just the table. Then we go to lookup edit. There's pulling just the container with the bare minimum HTML. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, put them in the comments, and like if this helped in any way. Bonus time. Here are how charts work in Wizard's Toolkit. We use the chart.js, which I will include all the links in the description of the YouTube video. But then we did a lot of custom modifications to make it even better for you. So here is our SQL statement, and you do need to know how to write SQL to get the most out of Wizard's Toolkit. So here I am putting the SQL statement in, and you can see that in raw SQL, you end up with the user info or whatever your labels should be, and then your counts. And you can have up to 5 different counts that it will chart for you, all on a single chart. And let's go back to the PHP. This just aligns these on the right when we get to the actual charting page. And this is using single page. So all we're doing is exporting it or echoing it. So let me show you how cool this works. I'm going to click on the chart demo, and this just called that one little piece of, this just called this, and it generates all of this. Here's our logins, and they're right justified because of the column align global array. And here's our labels that we saw on here. And here's our bar chart. And it's got the hover over feature where it shows you the label and what item it's showing, like page views 3003, which if we look back here, here's our page views 3003, our logins 482, report views 204, report views 204. It's using the same data for the report, the bar chart, the line chart, and everything has hover over. William Slapper, 522 billion page views. Line chart and area chart are really the same thing. It's just one has shading. And then the pie chart. That's it. Have a great day. And like if this has helped. Subscribe for more on the business of programming.